Hello everyone, I'm Joe, and today we're going to talk about the Construct1. But first of all, I want to introduce a couple of people. So this right here, this is Theresa Lord, and this right here, this is Jacob Lord. Theresa and Jacob are a mother and son duo who have decided that they want to venture into the world of 3D printer manufacturing. Now at this day and age, it's really not easy to stand out in this market, so you have to have a very particular machine. So in comes the Construct1, which I have right here. Now unfortunately, I've only had this machine for a couple of days because Theresa and Jacob are in Malta at the moment and doing some promo stuff for their Kickstarter launch. And they did give me the machine to play around with for a few days and give them my thoughts. Now this is not really a review because this is a Kickstarter machine and I know some things will probably change by the time it reaches the backers. So instead I wanted to give you a bit of a story of how this machine came to be, what it offers, and what I've done with it in about 36 hours of printing. So Theresa and Jacob were pretty much helping out the NHS during the pandemic, doing their face shields. And Jacob, being an engineer, a very young engineer, decided that the machines that he had available to him were just too slow. So he started creating his own speed demon. Time went by, iterations happened, and the Construct1 is the birth child of about 2 years or possibly more worth of work from Jacob. This is the small version. This is the one, the Construct1. There is a bigger version of this, but this is the one I got to play with. The build volume on this one is 210 by 260 by 180. And it's a very clean design. It's very hard to articulate how good this looks. It has these beautiful bamboo side panels. This is actually bamboo on the side. It runs on a Duet 2 Wi-Fi. It has a Hemera extruder with a Volcano hot end and CHT nozzles. Touchscreen, and to a certain extent, that's all the fancy stuff it has. It's just really built well. Now recently Clipper got quite a bit of momentum because you can actually achieve quite a bit of speed with Clipper. What I was unaware of, that some of those speeds can actually already be achieved with a Duet board and RipRap firmware. Now Jacob tuned this machine on his courier profile, and I don't tend to use courier that much. I do use Prusa Slicer, so I told him, give me the machine, I'll set up a profile, and I'll see what I can do with it. So I printed me a couple of calibration cubes just to see exactly how it will fare. I cranked up the acceleration to about 10,000 millimeters per second squared. I sped it up to about 200 millimeters a second, and off it went. Now the first thing you do in order to gauge how much speed a 3D printer has, you tend to print a benchy. You know that the standard time for a Cartesian printer is about 1 hour and 46 minutes for a benchy. So I aimed, knowing that Jacob managed to do a 26-minute benchy on this, I kind of wanted to see if I can at least reach somewhere to that level. First benchy was about 40 minutes, second benchy was about 33 minutes. I started cranking up the speeds and the accelerations, and I managed to go down to about 25 minutes for a benchy. Now it wasn't perfect, it still needs some fine tuning, but once again, I had only a couple of hours to set up the slicer, but it printed, and it's not perfect, but it did print a 3D benchy in under 13 minutes. Seeing as I had limited time, I decided to just start printing some things. So I jumped on the Cinderwing articulated dragon train because up until this point, I hadn't ever printed any. I got me some pretty epic Sparta 3D filament from Earth, so I decided to print the crystal version of the dragon. And usually this prints in around 24 hours. However, this one took about 8.5 hours to print. So once that was done, I decided to print another one. More of a Halloween-y type feel to it. This took about 9.5 hours to print, plus another maybe 3 hours for the wings. Then I wanted to have the opportunity to do an epic time lapse, so I printed this vase by Cinderwing as well, which took roughly about 12 hours to print. And I threw in some bamboo money trees because, you know, bamboo side panels and bamboo trees. So you probably wonder, if you're not going to do a review and you're not going to tell us anything whether or not we should back this machine, what's the point? The point is that Kickstarter was made for companies like Construct3D. Jacob and Theresa are a mother and son duo. It does not get startup more than that. and a company that is trying to enter a market with something different. And that's exactly what Kickstarter was for. It's for these type of companies. So I was more than happy to showcase this machine on the channel. And once again, there's always the disclaimers with Kickstarter. Whatever you back on Kickstarter, please bear in mind that you are not buying a product. You are supporting a company. You're giving a company the opportunity to create product. You may or may not get something in return, but ultimately you are backing the company, not the product itself. So you're not essentially buying anything. I know I've said this a million times, but it's important for me to reiterate it every now and then. As for the machine itself, it does actually look beautiful, and it sits so nicely among the rest of the furniture in the house. It's just so clean. And the one thing I want to point out, something that I really love, is its repairability. So Jacob and Teresa got 3 machines down to Malta. I saw the machines after they arrived. They have been ridiculously mishandled by shipping, with bolts sheared off. Most of these machines were absolutely destroyed. So I in the back of my mind, I knew that I would come across some issues. I did come across an issue with the bed probe where the wires kind of frailed themselves and the inner copper of the wires actually pulled itself apart. It took a while to diagnose, but I got to it. And the issue there is not necessarily because of the transport, it's because of the bracket that houses the cable string. So it's a relatively easy fix for Jacob to do. As for the wire, as I said, repairability. So it's just a matter of changing a length of wire for the probe. It's very easy to do. The machine is very simple in its purest form. It's just aluminum extrusions, it's belts, it's pulleys, it's a Hemera, it's a do-it board, it's a power supply at the back. So relatively easy to find parts and fix this should something ever go wrong. Now there are a few things, obviously, as I said, something like the cable strain needs a bit of improvement, but other than that, it's a relatively finished machine. And I say finished with a bit of caution because I believe the firmware can be improved, not in terms of functionality for printing, but user friendliness. Little things like, for example, when you want to unload filament, ideally the bed should raise a little bit because the filament spool is housed within the printer itself. It sits on the bed on a roller at the bottom. So essentially this machine, the footprint that the machine is all you need in terms of space. There are no attachments to the side, to the back whatsoever. So it's little things like this, just to make it a bit easier on the experience side of things. But other than that, the print quality is really good, actually, especially for the speed that it prints. And I was blown away at the speeds you can reach even with a Hemera extruder. It's not a light extruder, by no means. It's not lightweight, it's pretty hefty. And at speeds, this thing does sound like it's about to implode. But I'm starting to get accustomed to the fact that, you know, machines that go at these kind of speeds, they all seem like they're all about to implode because it just seems unnatural. But other than that, I'm actually glad I got to try this machine. It's simple, it's elegant, it's fast, and it's fun. But once again, repairable. It's something that someone like me, who's a tinkerer, who's a maker, would enjoy having, because even if I wanted to modify it, it's relatively easy to do. I wish Teresa and Jacob the best of luck for the launch of their Kickstarter with this machine. I hope it is successful. I hope they flourish, because at 24 years old, that's Jacob, by the way, being able to design something like this, it takes a special kind of mind, and I applaud that, and I absolutely love this machine. So I cannot even begin to imagine what is down the line for Jacob and Teresa once they get their feet firmly planted on the ground, they establish themselves. So yeah, really looking forward to the future. If you want more information on the Construct One, you'll find them in the video description below. The disclaimer on this video is nothing really. The machine I've had for about 4 days. It's going back tonight. No money has exchanged hands. All thoughts and views are my own, based on the machine that I have used right here. So yeah, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And once again, more information on the Construct One or the Construct XL can be found in the video description. That is it for me, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, happy making, guys.